Robert Smith to me is like one of the best songwriters ever.
I properly think they're the best band on the planet.
Much to my surprise, they knew who I was.
I didn't know about like rock.
This is what I want to do. And I was like, this is what we're going to do.
You have like these incredible songwriters out there, you know, like Robert Smith to me is like one of the best songwriters ever. And obviously the Lennons and the McCartneys of the world and the Bowies. If I had a deeper musical knowledge, you know, I would be able to aspire to write a song like Comfortably Numb or something, you know, like, from Pink Floyd, so I don't think that like I'm some genius by any means, but I do think that like I've progressed. And I think like, if you listen to the Lifeforms album, what you're going to hear is me unapologetically touring all the music that I've loved my whole life. I mean, there's like a Depeche Mode song, there's like a New Order song, there's like a post-hardcore Boxcar Racer song, like there's like punk rock song, you know, it's like it's all there.
Teenage musical heroes, I guess, you know, like my dad and my grandfather, you know, they were these you know, jazz and blues musicians that I would see on the weekends, and like, you know, they had these giant date books with like these big rubber bands wrapped around them, and like with like weird pieces of paper stuck in it, and it was like the secret club. Like they would talk about, you know, places that they'd played or different musicians that they'd played with. You know, my dad, when he was I guess late teens, early 20s, he toured with the Marvelettes, and then when he went to college in Montana, he played with like a bunch of like, you know, country artists and stuff out there. I think he even met Johnny Cash one time, and like, you know, these were these stories that you would hear about, like, you know, the time that somebody met Frank Sinatra and you know, Irv Cotter and all these guys, and like, you know, it was like a secret society, and I just wanted to be a part of it so bad. And I would get to see my grandfather sometimes on the weekends too. Like he played this speakeasy called the Marrow Inn, and he would play like old jazz stuff and standards. And if I got to stay up late enough, I could go to the diner with the band afterwards, and that was pretty awesome.
Queen was a big one. Sparks is a big influence for me. I did get to meet Queen recently, a couple months ago at the Bohemian Rhapsody premiere. Met Brian May and Roger Taylor, and much to my surprise, they knew who I was, and they were like, you know, bring it in for a hug, you know, I know who you are, mate, that sort of thing. And I was like, you know, this definitely shouldn't be real, but it was a cool experience.
I've been very fortunate in that a lot of the bands that were my favorite bands or artists I've had an opportunity to meet, and most of them have been, I mean, really the overwhelming majority of them have been fantastic. The one that I could cite directly is obviously my favorite band of all time is Alkaline Trio, and I've had the opportunity to work with Matt a handful of times and write with him and sing with him, and he's just been absolutely wonderful. So that was a very cool experience. I got to write a song that has not yet been heard by anybody, but a song that we wrote last year that I really like, and hopefully winds up seeing the light of day at some point. And then obviously he sang on Stay Alive on my first solo record. So yeah, just the coolest thing for me. I'm still just a diehard dedicated fan. I listen to them more than any other band. And in fact, just yesterday when landing, first thing I do, open up Spotify, turn on the B-sides. The Remains record was all B-side stuff.
When music really started meaning a lot to me was when I was in high school. I was about, 12, 13 years old, and I started getting into the whole pop punk scene, Fat Records, Epitaph Records. And my favorite bands back then would have been No Use for a Name, Face to Face, Lagwagon, NoFX, Bad Religion, which is funny because a lot of the bands are actually here today. El Jefe from NoFX was watching our show earlier. I watched them yesterday. I watched Lagwagon. Bad Religion, I watched them play 21st Century Digital Boy, which is a song that I grew up listening to. So those are my influences, a lot of like punk bands from California, and yeah, that's what they were.
It's Japanese rock band. It's called Rise. Maybe you guys don't know about Rise, but they're like, it's pretty hardcore scene in Japan and underground scene. They got pretty famous, and I went to the shows from Rise, and I really got shocked. Like, I didn't know about like rock, but it was like first like see what is the rock sounds, what is the rock culture, what is the rock band. So yeah.
So for me, the one band that honestly made me want to start this band was A Day to Remember, and we've gotten to see them a couple times. We haven't gotten to meet them yet.
I played Fortnite with a couple once in a while,
but I can't really say anything yet. But hopefully we get to do some stuff with them soon. We're working on some stuff, and we're very excited about that. So yeah, I would say A Day to Remember would be my big one.
I think it'd be Slipknot, and I think their door is closed. Under Oath, they're right over next door. Don't tell them. They're my heroes, man. Like, I grew up listening to Slipknot and Under Oath, and just like the whole like screaming, harsh vocal stuff. I was like, man,
paving the way for bands like us.
How the hell do you do that, right? And yeah, now I just listen to them religiously, and
we're on the same damn labels. And
yeah,
what the hell?
It's pretty tight.
How did that happen?
I remember wanting to go to shows and never going to a big one until the Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness tour. I started to think about almost everything a little differently after that night, where I was like, man, like, I don't think there's maybe anything else I'd rather do in life than maybe do what he's doing, or they're doing. Sorry, I want to do what they're doing. You know what I mean? I had the sliver in my brain at that moment. Crowd just erupting, and the whole place singing every word to every song, not just the singles. Just everybody in that room being invested, you know? I remember that, and the energy in the room. So I was so awestruck that they were playing Madison Square Garden, I think a day after, 2 days after. And I was like, I gotta go again. You know, I was like, they were playing 2 nights at Madison Square Garden. I was like, I need to go again, and I need to bring my brother. I was like, we gotta go. I think my brother had that same kind of revelation I did that night when we saw the Madison Square Garden show. And I remember like nudging him and being like, this is what I want to do. And I was like, this is what we're going to do. I was like, and we're going to play this room.
My teenage musical hero was Robert Smith from The Cure, and I have met him. And he sang on a Blink song, and he came out and performed that song with us in London. And we covered Boys Don't Cry, and he sang that, and it was really cool.
My musical heroes growing up were definitely Motley Crue, and I have met 2 members of Motley Crue. And but I did ride on an airplane with the whole band one time, so I feel like that counts.
Yeah, so I mean, different stages, but I was way into Guns N' Roses whenever I was first starting to learn how to play, and even before then. I've never met those dudes. But then later, like, my heroes were the Descendants, and I've got to meet almost all of them.
Yeah, that's a weird one, because like the Descendants is sort of like where the whole idea of Bowling for Soup comes together, and so they would definitely be all of our heroes collectively. And yeah, I mean, we're lucky enough to even call those guys friends, which is awesome.
I don't think they would listen to Incubus or watch one of our shows and be like, this band was influenced by Phish, but I think maybe some of our more dedicated listeners might agree if they had listened to Phish and listened to, oh yeah, you know, like even especially the earlier stuff, like you were saying, we were noodling a lot more. We call that noodling. We do enjoy kind of like remixing our own songs on occasion, and that was inspired by Phish and the Dead, but also bands like Primus. Primus was another huge influence on our band early days, and in a lot of ways our band wouldn't exist if it weren't for the influence of Primus and Phish, and Mr. Bungle was a big influence on us, and even bands that were more kind of like above ground, like Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and stuff like that. They all kind of, you know, leached into our process, and still to this day I love all of those bands dearly.
And for me, we were able to get a lot of them on our album. So Finch, you know, that's a band that I grew up loving. Phoenix TX, Less Than Jake, and Mest, and all of those artists contributed to the Silver Scream, so that was a really cool experience.
I think mine was like Good Charlotte and like Avril Lavigne and all that kind of thing. But Good Charlotte, I have a funny story. So recently we just finished like a tour with 1OK Rock in the US, and we were in our green room, and because water parks were on that tour, and the Madden brothers manage water parks, and we were in our green room, and the door was shut because it was freezing cold, and we were just talking amongst ourselves, and then we hear a knock at the door. And then Jono answers it, and then it's just this dude standing there, and then he was like, hey, do you know where water parks are? And then Jono was like, oh yeah, they're just down the hall, and then shuts the door, and then we all just look at each other like, was that Benji Madden? And it was. Well, it was either Benji or Joel, I don't really know.
We still haven't figured that
I think
one
it's
out.
Benji. Anyway, so yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I've met him. And then I met him later being like, pretending like I'd never seen him before. But yeah, hey.
A big one for me was the starting line, because The Best of Me was the first song I ever learned on guitar, and we got to share the stage with them at Slam Dunk in 2016, and that was really, really cool, but I was way too shy to talk to them, so that sucks for me.
A really big influence for me was The Used, and I remember meeting all the guys. In fact, they did a stint on Warped Tour with us last summer. Last Warped Tour and my first ever playing, and it was sick. Yeah, Bert was incredible.
Metallica. Yeah, we love them, and we learned how amazing metal is from them. Yeah, we really respect them.
Well, okay, Slash is mine, right? And we did Soundwave with Slash, but I wouldn't have gone up and met him just because we get that all the time, and I'm like, this guy gets it all the time. You know what I mean? Like at least 3 times what we get. So I was like, I'm just not gonna do it. But I had the opportunity, just left it alone.
Yeah. For me, when I was really young, it was Freddie Mercury, and that's always been kind of one of my top. And of course, I'd never had the chance to meet him. And then Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind is one of them for sure. And I did get the chance to meet him, and we played a song with him back summer of 2016, I guess it was. And so that was really cool. And I did a phone interview with him where we just like chatted on the phone for like an hour, and I probably sounded like such an idiot, and it's like one of the like cringe thinking about what I probably said, but it was it's cool. He's a really weird dude, but super talented, and just a neat guy for sure.
My musical hero growing up was Gwen Stefani, and I've met all of No Doubt except her. I've never got to meet her, so that still would be a dream come true. I might pay for the $1,000 meet and greet and meet her.
You should.
I mean, it'd be worth it. I'll do it.
The most important is Billie Joe Armstrong and Green Day as a band. I had a cousin who gave me a cassette tape that had Bad Religion on one side and Cringer, this band, on the other side. Bad Religion are still one of my favorite bands of all time because of that, but it was too smart for me whenever I was 15 years old, and Green Day really brought empathy and love and all of these predications of punk rock into a learnable language to me. And so that was the first band that I saw that said to me, I can do this.
And it was like this punk demo of Thinking About You from Pablo Honey. And I was just absolutely enticed by the lyricism, the way he just described these little weird little things about this person that he could see in his flat. Like your teeth are over there, on the banister in the wall, sort of thing like that. And I just thought the imagery was really cool. It just really struck me. I got more and more and more into them as the band progressed, and as I kind of found my own voice musically and physically, I just fell in love. And every album, like I properly think they're the best band on the planet, and you can't beat them. So yeah, I love them so much.
That really two stand out as being super duper important in my early years as a musician, trying to be one anyways. And that would be Roger Taylor from Queen, who was just so cool, so awesome, and always looked cool and always had a cool drum set and sang. He was the guy. He was the guy, and that was the first rock band besides like the Beatles, listening to the Beatles and whatever, like with my parents when I was younger. It's the first like rock band that I like bought their records and read the back of them and all that. And so I decided I wanted to be Roger Taylor. And then my brother turned me on to the Police around the same time. This is like 1982, 81, 82. And Stuart Copeland, their drummer, is a huge important influence on me as far as drumming and being creative. He was just so creative. There was like no one like him. He really was redefining drumming at that time. So, I mean, those two were my first childhood drum heroes.